Hello viewers, I remain Beatrice Christopher from Statistics Scribe. God's willing, in these tutorials, I'm going to explain values here as a variable attributes. So I'm going to show you how to define this variable attribute. Sometimes we call this values here value labels, as you can see here. Okay, so before I explain, I'd like you to know that value labels are useful primarily for categorical variables. When I say categorical variables, I mean nominal or ordinal variables, okay? Especially if they have been recorded as codes. For example, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. That means maybe 1 means pass, do you understand? And 0 means fail. It depends on the coding or level of education and stuff like that. And I also want you to know that value labels facilitate data entry and also ensures that data are entered with better accuracy. Simply because sometimes when you're typing an entry, maybe you want to type highest level of education and you typed in primary, secondary, tertiary and stuff like that. So maybe at the course of typing primary, you made mistake in spelling, which is your typographical error. And you see, IBM Spss statistics will not take cognizance of that. It will treat them as separate. So advisably, it's better you code your categorical variables in such kind of situations so that you can actually reduce your probability of making error. Okay, so it is strongly recommended that you give each value a label so that you or anyone looking at your data or results understand what each value represents. Okay, that is why we want to do that. I'll show you the disadvantage of not defining the value labels. So when value labels are defined, the labels will display in the output instead of the original code. What we are saying is if we define these value labels here, the results will display in the output instead of the original code. So quickly, let me just try something so that you see it practically, okay? So for easy comprehension, I'm going to create a new variable here, which is categorical in nature. The variable in this case, let me call it, let's say I have grade. So grade is my variable in this case. Now in this case, if you observe, my label is missing, my values is missing. So I'm going to create a grade. Let's say we have grades such as pass, third class, second class lower, second class upper, and first class. Now just take note of what's going to happen. I'm going to the data view here. You can switch, click on it. Now under the data view, if you observe here, this is grade. Now this grade, let's assume this is pass. You see, it's not showing, right? Because it's a numeric. Can you see it? So if you want to change this to string, you can go back to your variable view and change it to string. Okay, but I don't want to change it to string. I want it to be a numeric value. Okay, so in this case, I want 1 to represent pass, 1, and I want 2 to represent third class. I also want 3 to represent second class lower, and I want 4 to represent second class upper. Then last but one, I have 5, which I want it to represent first class. Because the value labels have not been defined, it will be difficult for someone else or any other reader to understand what 1 means, what 2 means, what 3 means. Does 1 stands for pass or first class? You see, it will be difficult to comprehend that because if you want to toggle around, it won't change, you see. So try as much as possible to define that, because if you run the analysis, no one will know that 5 stands for first class. 1 could be first class in reverse coding order, okay? So it depends on how you define that. So now let's see quickly. I'm going back to my variable view. Here I want to define it here. So observe what's going to happen. It's numeric. I just want it to be 0 decimals. Observe. You see now, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as opposed to the previous one, which is 1.00, 2.00, and so on and so forth. So toggle around also. So here under labels, I want to call this grade the class of degree. The class of degree. That's my label, okay? So quickly under values, if you want to code it, you just tap on it, click. This is what we have, value labels. So under value, I want 1 to represent pass. Then you go to label and type in pass. That means 1 means pass. Then you click on add. You see it has added 1 code for you. That means 1 stands for pass, or pass stands for 1. The next thing again, I want 2 to represent third class. Third class. You can either add as usual or just press your enter key. You see, it has added it using the enter key. Then 3. Now under 3, I want 3 to stand for second class. Second class, lower. Click on add or enter. Then 4. I want 4 to stand for second class, upper, add. And last but 1, I want 5 to stand for first class, then add, or you can use your enter key, okay? So that's all. We've defined that. Then you press OK. As simple as ABC. If you observe, it has changed here. So let's toggle around to see. Go back to data view. See under data view, I have what? Pass, third class, second class. Let me extend it or expand it. This is pass, third class, second class, but this is second class lower and second class upper, first class. So you can toggle around this value label icon here. If I toggle around now, observe here, you're going to see the numbers, the codes for each. You see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can switch again to see what each code represents. You see, it's easy for readability. And if you conduct any statistical analysis, what you're going to see on the output is all this value labels, because you have value labels. Are we together? So, but if you don't do that, you only have the numbers, and for readability's sake, it will not be easy for others to read. That's why we recommend that you give each value a label so that you or anyone looking at your data or results understands what each value represents, okay? So it's going to be easy and very, very simple to visualize. Let's create another variable here called survival. So for simplicity, I want to call the label survival also. Maybe those that survived a particular accident or something like that. So, and the code here, under this, my value here, I want 0 to be for no. That means did you survive, or did someone survive an accident or plague or something like that. 0 for no, then add 1 for yes. Now the question is, why did I actually use 0 and 1? This is simply because this is a dummy variable, okay? Kindly follow us. I will make a video on dummy variables so you'd understand the full concept about that. It's actually not wrong for you to have 1 for no and 2 for yes, or 1 for yes and 2 for no. It's still correct, but for readability's sake, dummy variables are supposed to be well defined, okay? And the best way to define that is make sure that 0 indicates the absence of a categorical variable, while 1 indicates the presence of a categorical variable. Okay, so I'm going to hit or click on the OK button here. So I have my dummy variables. So if I go back to my data view, now under survival, let's say if I press 1, 1 stands for what? Yes. Observe, it has changed. 0, 0 stands for what? No. 1, 1, and you see it? 0, 0. If you type anything other than 1 and 0, it will not appear. As you can see here I'm seeing 9. It's showing that I don't have code for 9. So it's an error from my end here. So it's 0, 0. So that's how you actually code it. So going back to variable view here, I want to show you something. We have other functions. So any of this, clicking on this, we have spellings, errors, we have the help section where you can check for more help from the IBM SPSS statistics documentaries, okay? So, and this is cancel. Maybe you want to cancel your selection. I've canceled it here, as you can see. So let me make a spelling error by creating a variable in any of this variable. So let's say for this admission, and I want to code it. In this case, maybe I want to code my value here, 1 to mean died, and I mistakenly spelled died as this. I'm going to add it. IBM SPSS is telling me that this is not an error, okay? But if you want to know if it's an error or not, you go to your spelling box here and click on it, the button. So as you can see here, I have 0001 because I have with count of 4, as you can see here. But let's check for spelling errors. We obviously know that this is an error. This is not the spelling for died. So let's check spelling. You see, it's telling us that there's a spelling error. So not in dictionary, died, it's supposed to be died. Then change to, here is telling us that this is what we have. What do we want to change it to? Suggestions. Is it died, dale, days, defy, stuffs like that? Dane, deism, deist. So, but we want it to be died. So once you click on this and you click on change, it will change the spelling error to died. Are we together? So here, if you want to ignore it, you can ignore, but I don't want to ignore. And let's also assume that this word is actually a word that exists and you can easily add it to the dictionary, okay? So I'm going to click on change now. See, to change it. Okay. Spell check is complete. Okay. Died, and you click on okay. Now observe, I'm going back. Check. This is what I have now. Died. So it has corrected it. You can actually use this, okay? For help, you can come to this place and click on help, okay? To take you to the IBM SPSS statistics documentary, but it's online. You have to be connected. So other things to take note of are the add, the change, and the remove buttons here. So let me select this. Now, this means whenever you added, if you want to change anything or remove, let's assume I want to remove this, you can just click on remove it to remove it. Remove, you have to activate that by clicking OK. You see it has removed it, right? Click, nothing is left. That's how to use the remove button. Now the next thing is, maybe let's say we want to use the change. For example, now I want to change the survival maybe into survived, not survived, or dead and alive. Now, for example, I want to change this 0 to, let's say, dead. Then I'll click on the labels here. Instead, in place of no, I'll retype dead. Then you see, you now click on change. It will change this no to dead. Observe, it has changed. Then let's say I want to change this yes to alive. You can change it to alive. Then click on change. Now, to effect all these changes or corrections, you'll have to click on OK. Okay, don't forget that. If you don't click, the previous one will still reflect. So I'll click on OK. See, it has changed my value labels from no to dead and from yes to alive, as you can see. Now, I have some notes I want you to take note of. One of the notes is the fact that defining value labels only affects the labels associated with each value and does not change the recorded values themselves. What I'm saying is whenever you define a value label, this is alive, this is pass. This pass here does not change the actual value, unlike when you use just string and just type. So here, if I click on this to toggle around, 1 still remains 1. Can you see it? 2 still remains 2. It's just a value label attached to it. That's why I said defining value labels only affects the label associated with each value and does not change the recorded value themselves. Okay? It does not change any of those values. Now, the second thing I'd like you to take note of is the fact that unlike when you enter string in full, the chance of making mistakes in the data is reduced because the number of characters you will be entering in each cell is less. For example here, let's assume this is my grade, right? I want to type in pass. So here, the next thing is pass, P-A-S-S. Then I mistakenly type E, per se. You see, it's an error. Now, it's advisable for you to actually use the codes. It makes it much more easier. So, actually, if I type the pass, I only have it popped up. But in a situation whereby you did not code it at all. For example, let me hurriedly create a new variable here called maybe solve for the survived. Then here I want to put it as a string. Let me change it to string so that you'd see the error. So this is string. Here I have string and I want to type it coming back pass. You see, it's not showing the error. Third class. So going like that, you see this pass is not showing error because you are prone to make error if care is not taken. And Ibm Spss statistics will treat all of this as separate. Like this pass now is separate from this. Can you see it? They are different. So it's advisable for you to code so that you would not have any error. For example, if you click on the arrows here, you'd easily see the pull down menus. Can you see it? You can easily toggle around and select that which you want to select. So at least to minimize the level of error. So let me clear off this. Let me clear this off. Toggle around and go back to where we stopped. Then the third thing I'd like you to know that it is also less time consuming to type in data. You can see the time it will take you to type in maybe second class upper. It will be easier for you to just type in what? 3. Is that right? The time it takes for you to type first class will be much more consuming compared to typing 5 as a digit. So you see, it actually takes less time, okay? It consumes less time to type in data. Then number 4 thing I'd like you to know is the fact that it is easier to understand data. For example, a value of 1 does not automatically reveal whether the subject is male or female. Assigning value labels make this immediately obvious. What am I saying? Let's assume I have something here called gender as a variable, and here under the gender section, I have 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, something like that going down. If I toggle around, you see, here is changing because I've coded it, but here is not changing. Check the difference. Only grade and survival are changing. Can you see it? Grade and survival. So next thing you need to do is check. Now this is not changing because I said it is easier to understand data. For example, a value of 1 does not automatically reveal whether the subject is male or female. Assigning value labels make this immediately obvious. This 1, we don't know what 1 stands for. We don't know what 2 stands for. It's meaningless in this case. We only know that 2 is greater than 1, but do we actually know whether it's categorical or not? Now, what we are saying is you need to define the value labels. So you go through your variable view, and in this case, here let's call it gender of students. Okay, then value labels, I want, let's say, 1 to represent male, you add, then 2 to represent female, you add, and you click on OK. That's all. Now observe in the data view. Now check male, female, female, male, female, stuffs like that. So if I toggle around, the first one here is going to be 1 because 1 stands for male. Can you see it? So that's the advantage of actually using your value labels to code your variables. Okay? There's a rule I want you to take note, or a particular note to take note of. For example, I'd like you to know that a label can be assigned different values but a value cannot be assigned different labels. What am I saying? Let's assume I have 3, or let's say 1 here, and this 1, I want 1 to be female. Observe what will happen. There is a label already defined for this value. Replace the existing label. Do you want to replace it? If yes, click OK. If no, cancel. In this case, I want to cancel. So this means that a value cannot have multiple labels, but you can have a label with multiple values. Are we together? Now, let me show you what I mean here. Let's assume I want to have female, female, female. Now, code 3, if I have 3 and I want 3 to be female, it's possible because the code is different. So the code is the most important thing here. So observe, 3 is female, 2 stands for female, 3 stands for female. I want 4 to also stand for female. Okay, but if I want 5, observe now, if I want 5 to stand for male, it will still work. Okay, it will still work. Observe now. Now, I want to make an error so that you see what I mean by a value cannot take multiple labels. Okay, but a label can take multiple values. So I want to use a value to give it multiple labels. Again, once more for understanding so that you know it will not work just like I did. I want number 6, that is value 6 to be, my bad. I want value 1 to be female. It's not possible. There is a label already defined for this value. Replace the existing label? No. But in this case, I want to replace it so that you'd see now. Take note of the fact that if I replace it, observe what will happen to the females. Observe. So this is 1 now. You see? The female has replaced the male now here, right? Can you see it? It has replaced the male for 1. That's what we're saying. Then you click on OK. Right? So I hope you like this video. Kindly like, share, and subscribe. Hit on the notification bell for more updates.